Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into Greek mythology, but maybe not the version you think you know. We've got this huge stack of sources, articles, research notes, all pointing towards, well, the hidden stories, the really bizarre truths, and ancient secrets behind the usual tales.
That's right. And what's so fascinating about Greek mythology, and you see this in the sources, is how it's this collision, really, of pure fantasy and some pretty deep philosophical ideas.
Right.
So our mission here is to pull out the most important nuggets, the key takeaways from all this material. We want to help you see these myths in a completely new light. We're talking about those jaw-dropping facts, the stuff that makes you go, aha!
Yeah, the connections you maybe didn't see before.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. The goal is to get you feeling really well-informed quickly, without drowning you in information.
Okay, sounds like a plan. We're definitely promising some surprises and maybe some moments that just click. So yeah, let's dive into these timeless stories. All right, so first off, let's unpack this idea of the gods. You often think of deities as, perfect beings. But the Greek gods, not so much. Our sources really hammer this home. They were incredibly flawed.
Oh, deeply flawed. Almost shockingly so sometimes.
Like Zeus, king of the gods, right?
Yeah.
His affairs were legendary. And one note here mentions him turning into a swan to seduce a woman?
Yes, the whole swan thing with Leda is just one example. And that imperfection, it runs through the whole pantheon. Think about Hera, Zeus's wife, the goddess of marriage. Her jealousy wasn't just a personality quirk, it was profoundly destructive.
Didn't she turn someone into a cow?
She did. Turned a rival, into a cow. It shows how these divine beings mirrored some very human, very dark impulses. And then you've got Poseidon, god of the sea, creating horses just by slamming his trident into the earth.
Just like that.
Just like that. Raw power. And this points to something really crucial in the sources. The Greeks worshipped these gods, partly out of respect, sure, but also, a lot of fear.
Fear, okay.
Yeah, because these gods could either shower you with blessings or, just as easily, bring complete ruin down on your head. They held immense power over mortals. It wasn't necessarily about love.
Okay, that makes sense. And here's where it gets really interesting. Something our sources highlight, how these myths were basically the ancient world's science, their way of explaining the unexplainable before, actual science came along.
Absolutely. I mean, imagine trying to understand thunderstorms back then.
Right, no meteorology.
Exactly. So thunderstorms, that was Zeus, angry, throwing lightning bolts, earthquakes. That had to be Poseidon down below, shaking the ground.
Simple, direct explanations using the gods they knew.
Precisely. And it extended to everything, like the seasons. Why does winter happen? Well, their myth explained it through Hades kidnapping Persephone. Her mother, Demeter, the harvest goddess, mourned so deeply during those months that the earth grew cold and barren.
Wow. That's quite a story for winter.
It is. And here's a lesser-known insight from the research volcanic eruptions, like from Mount Etna.
Yeah.
They believed that was the fiery breath of the monster Typhon, who Zeus had trapped under the mountain. So even geology got a mythological explanation.
So they really wove meaning into everything. Gods, nature. And that brings us to the monsters, doesn't it? The sources seem to say they weren't just scary creatures.
Not at all. They were packed with symbolism. Powerful symbols.
Okay, like what? What kind of symbols?
Well, take the Minotaur half-man, half-bull stuck in that labyrinth. He wasn't just a monster. He represented sort of the beast within, human rage, savagery, the primal urges hidden inside us.
Okay, the beast within. Makes sense. What about Medusa?
Medusa, with the snake hair and the gaze that turns you to stone. She was basically a symbol of paralyzing fear, the kind of terror that stops you dead in your tracks.
Right, and the Hydra, the one with all the heads.
Ah, the Hydra. You cut off one head, two grow back. That's a perfect symbol for problems that seem to get worse the more you fight them head on, like maybe addiction or cycles of violence, things that just keep multiplying.
I never thought of it that way.
And a little-known fact our sources point out is that these monster stories were often used as, teaching tools. Moral lessons about pride, hubris, or greed, or even the danger of, say, overthinking something until it paralyzes you, like Medusa's gaze.
Fascinating. So myths as science, monsters as symbols. Now, what about the heroes? We tend to think of heroes as noble, right? Always doing the right thing.
Yeah, that's the modern idea. But the Greek heroes, often not so much. They were deeply flawed figures. Achilles, for example, greatest warrior, nearly invincible.
Except for his heel, yeah.
Right. But his massive ego, his pride, it directly led to the deaths of countless soldiers, including his closest friend during the Trojan War. Not exactly purely heroic behavior.
Okay, good point. Who else?
Well, Hercules, the epitome of strength, right? But in a fit of madness sent by Hera, he killed his own wife and children. His famous 12 labors, those are his penance, his punishment for that horrific act.
Wow, I actually didn't know that was the reason for the labors.
It adds a layer, doesn't it? And Odysseus, the clever strategist, the great survivor, but he was also a liar, a cheat, especially during the war and his journey home, and he suffered immensely for it over 10 long years.
So not exactly role models then.
Not in the modern sense, and this reveals a really core philosophical insight the Greeks had. Greatness always comes at a cost. Every single hero had what they called hamartia.
Hamartia.
Yeah, it's often translated as a tragic flaw, but it's more than just a mistake. It's like an intrinsic part of their character. Achilles' pride, Hercules' rage, Odysseus' trickery that ultimately leads to their downfall or great suffering. The idea was that even the greatest among us aren't immune to their own nature and its consequences.
So, okay, we've covered flawed gods, myths explaining nature, symbolic monsters, complicated heroes. What does all this actually mean for us today? What's the lasting impact?
That's the big question, isn't it? And the legacy is huge. These ancient stories laid the groundwork for so many enduring ideas in, well, Western philosophy and psychology.
How so?
Well, thinkers like Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, they constantly used these myths. They referenced them to explore human nature, ethics, the structure of the world. Plato's famous allegory of the cave.
Yeah.
Many scholars see direct parallels and inspiration from the myth of Orpheus descending into the underworld to rescue Eurydice. And fast forward a couple thousand years, you get Sigmund Freud.
Oh, right. The Oedipus complex.
Exactly. Named directly after the tragic story of King Oedipus, who, unknowingly fulfilled that terrible prophecy. It shows how these narratives tapped into fundamental psychological patterns.
And we still use terms from these myths all the time, don't we?
All the time. Think about it. Narcissism, from Narcissus, who fell in love with his own reflection. A Herculean task for something incredibly difficult. An Achilles' heel for a critical weakness. The language is still peppered with these ancient references.
It really is. Okay, so beyond the big names, Zeus, Hera, Apollo, Athena, our sources mention there's a whole world of lesser-known figures and stories, too, right? Kind of hidden gems.
Oh, absolutely. There's a fascinating cast just below the main Olympians, like Hypnos, the god of sleep. Interestingly, his twin brother was Thanatos, death.
Sleep and death as twins. That's evocative.
It speaks volumes about how they saw the connection. Then there's Nemesis. She wasn't just about revenge. She represented divine retribution and, crucially, balance. The idea that excessive pride or fortune would eventually be checked.
So, like cosmic justice.
Kind of, yeah. And Moros, the god of doom or destiny, a force that even the other gods often couldn't escape, suggesting some things were just fated to happen.
Heavy stuff. Any lighter hidden gems?
Definitely. There's a wonderful story mentioned in our notes about the god Hermes when he was just a baby, literally like hours old.
A baby god. Okay.
He snuck out and stole Apollo's sacred cattle. Super clever and mischievous. But then, to smooth things over with his angry older brother Apollo, he invented the lyre, the musical instrument, out of a tortoise shell he found.
He invented the lyre as a baby to apologize for stealing cows?
Pretty much. It shows his cunning, his creativity, even his diplomatic skill right from the start. And another interesting, less common belief is about creation itself. We often think of a god creating the world, but one Greek tradition suggests the universe emerged from chaos, a swirling, formless void. Creation from nothingness, essentially, not necessarily by a divine hand.
That's a really different perspective on creation. It's amazing how much depth there is. And, it's not just ancient history. You see these myths everywhere in modern pop culture.
Absolutely everywhere. It's pervasive. Percy Jackson is the obvious one, built entirely around it. Wonder Woman's origins are steeped in Greek mythology. The Amazons, the gods.
Right, the Misra and all that.
Exactly, and you can draw broader parallels, too. The Olympians, this council of powerful, distinct gods, it's basically the template for superhero teams like the Justice League.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. Different powers, clashing personality.
Totally. And Hades, the lord of the underworld, he pops up constantly from the somewhat comical version in Disney's Hercules to being a background influence or even antagonist in things like Harry Potter, where Greek mythical creatures abound.
Even movies like The Matrix. Do they connect?
I'd argue they do. The Matrix follows the hero's journey template, the reluctant hero, the prophecy, the mentor figure, facing trials, gaining enlightenment. That's a structure drawn heavily from ancient narratives, including Greek ones.
And what about that medical symbol? the snake on the staff.
Ah, yes. The caduceus. That's a great, did you know, fact, often mixed up. The caduceus with two snakes winding around a winged staff, that's actually the staff of Hermes.
Hermes, the messenger god, the baby who stole the cows.
The very same. His staff is more associated with commerce, negotiation, travel, even thieves sometimes. The actual ancient Greek symbol for medicine and healing is the rod of Asclepius. That's the one with just one snake coiled around a simple staff. Asclepius was the god of healing.
So a two-snake one we see sometimes isn't technically right for medicine.
Technically no, though it's become widely adopted, probably through confusion over time. It just shows how these symbols evolve. But the core point is Greek myths never really vanished. They just adapted, changed shape, and kept influencing us.
Which brings us back to the big question, really. After all this, the flawed gods, the heroes, the monsters, the echoes in our world, why? Why are we still talking about Zeus and Athena and Hercules thousands of years later?
It's profound, isn't it? I think the answer, fundamentally, is that Greek mythology. Well, it isn't just about gods and monsters fighting epic battles. At its core, it's about us.
About us.
Yeah. Our deepest fears, our strongest desires, our terrible flaws, our highest aspirations and dreams. These timeless stories hold up a mirror to the human soul. They explore these universal themes: love, betrayal, power, revenge, destiny, courage, loss, in ways that still hit home, that still feel incredibly relevant no matter what century you live in.
They're just fundamentally human stories wrapped in divine or monstrous clothing.
Exactly. They capture the essence of the human condition.
So maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on.
Yeah.
How do these ancient tales, which started maybe as ways to explain lightning or teach kids not to be too proud, how do they still manage to reflect our own core struggles and triumphs today? Where do you see those echoes in your own life or the world around you?
It's definitely worth pondering.
We really encourage you to maybe dig a little deeper yourself, find your own connections in these incredibly rich narratives. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden corners of Greek mythology.